Be an atheist, from what I've been able to understand, requires two things.
All right, let's see it.
One is a kind of alliance with a reductive materialist rationalism.
So this is a laughably reductive and bad take, and in order for it to be true, all atheism would have to descend from philosophical inquiry, which it objectively does not. It would also all have to descend from this particular brand of philosophical inquiry, which it, again, objectively does not. Atheism long predates this particular brand of philosophical inquiry, and as a putative psychologist, Dr. Peterson should know that cognitive psychologists, evolutionary psychologists, cognitive scientists, sociologists, anthropologists, and others have been studying the nature and origins of atheism for many, many years, and we have a lot of awfully good insights that don't require this retreat to this laughably reductive and bad take. All beliefs that qualify as religious ultimately derive from the interaction of intuitive and reflective cognition within socio-material ecologies and the cultural pressures that attend them. So these beliefs percolate on an individual level, but tend to be rather fleeting until they get leveraged by social institutions and social frameworks, which allows them to get further developed and then to persevere from generation to generation. And non-belief arises from the same kinds of interactions, only it's usually the product of reflective analytical thinking overruling the more intuitive thinking, but then it also has to combat those cultural pressures. If you would like to see some scholarship on that, here are some books that have chapters on the nature and the origins of atheism, and there are plenty of journal articles. Here's just a handful. In fact, the wonderful journal Religion, Brain, and Behavior dedicated an entire issue to the question of the nature and origins of atheism in human cognition. So if you actually want to understand what psychologists think about this, there's a lot of stuff that's available. Dr. Peterson is just trying to pander to ignorant right-wing authoritarians because he knows which side of his bread is buttered.
And there's a kind of a Luciferian pretension that goes along with that.
So I don't know what Dr. Peterson means by Luciferian pretension, but if he means Luciferian in the sense of an enlightenment, self-empowerment kind of rebellion against dominant social forces, well, that pretension doesn't necessarily have to exist for atheism to exist. It just has to exist if atheism must struggle for survival against dominant social forces. And frequently, that is the case where religious belief is the dominant cultural force, where folks are trying to minoritize, marginalize, oppress, or stamp out of existence atheism. You know, what Dr. Peterson seems to be trying to do in this laughably ignorant and reductive screed.
But that's insufficient.
It is true that that is a bafflingly insufficient, ignorant, and inaccurate explanation for the existence of atheism.
It also really helps if you were viciously hurt by someone religious.
Yes, if you leverage that collection of beliefs and behaviors that we have labeled religion to harm other people, there will be a greater occurrence of critical and analytical thinking among those other people regarding that collection of beliefs and behaviors, which will result in a greater occurrence of reflective cognition overruling intuitive cognition, and therefore a greater occurrence of the beliefs and behaviors we label atheism. So while this reductive and ignorant invective is an entirely inaccurate account of the nature and origins of all atheism, it is certainly a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you use your worldview to harm other people, you will find that people reject your worldview. This is a profoundly ignorant take, and it's very clearly Dr. Peterson leveraging his putative expertise in a field about which he very clearly has no knowledge, in order to try to lend credibility to, in order to try to validate right-wing authoritarian and Christian nationalist identity markers, just so he can advance his own interests and his own access to power and resources. And the fit for this video has been Dale Keown's Incredible Hulk.